Bienvenidos, jueves 8 de octubre desde la BNew Barcelona New Economy Week en el plato de e-commerce de la Estació de França con nuestro BNew partner Adif y también Servihabitat. Vamos a actualizar marcadores porque ayer ya superamos los 10.000 registrados en 111 países diferentes. Recordamos este macroevento del B2B y justo cuando estamos en el Ecuador de la BNew. Seguimos compartiendo nuestro denominador común con los 5 canales, que es reactivar la economía. Ayer hablamos mucho de alimentación, sostenibilidad, salud, productos frescos y hoy nos vamos a centrar en este canal que es el e-commerce, en su proceso y lo más importante, la rentabilidad económica. Para ello empezaremos el primer panel, será todo digital y en inglés. We start with the first BNew panel session, One Stop Global. The session will be dedicated to the mandatory introduction of electronic advanced data to pre-declare cross-border e-commerce globally. The moderator is Walter Trezek. He had experience in the industry postal for 35 years. Currently, he is the chairman of the Consultative Committee of the Universal Postal Union. He is the co-chair of the e-logistics working group of e-commerce Europe and leads the European postal standardization in the field of digital postal services. Well, first, we are going to start with a keynote by the Deputy General Director of the Universal Postal Union, Mr. Pascal Ribas. After this, Walter will talk representatives of B2B and e-commerce. Well, Walter, hello, all yours.
Thank you very much indeed. It is indeed a huge pleasure to have the opportunity to introduce you to this panel on One Stop Global. The panel is dedicated to raise the awareness within the global e-commerce sender community of the upcoming changes as early as the 1st of January 2021, when the Universal Postal Union, a special organization of the United Nations facilitating global postal exchange, will implement its mandatory electronic advanced data pre-declaration infrastructure globally for any commercial item within its global postal network. Approximately currently 70% of all global cross-border commercial items are transported, customs declared, within the UPU Global Postal Network, and of course facilitated by all the national postal administrations. This change will be of significance. The digitalization of e-commerce will be driven forward globally, facilitated by the Universal Postal Union. And this in a time when we all have seen major advance due to the COVID crisis and the pandemic. So the initiative and the mandatory implementation of electronic advanced data is not only very important for e-commerce, but also for the leapfrogging of the digitalization in commerce as such. I have in particular the honor now to introduce a very distinguished expert and key speaker on that topic, the Deputy Director General of the Universal Postal Union, Mr. Pascal Ribas. He is the Deputy Director General of the International Bureau of the Universal Postal Union since the 1st of January 2013, after being elected to the position on the 10th of October 2012 at the 25th Universal Postal Congress in Doha, in Qatar. He was re-elected in 2016 during the 26th Congress in Istanbul. Until his election, he was already Director for Finance and Strategic Planning of the International Bureau, which he joined already in 2005. I guess nobody is better qualified to give us such a very important keynote speech. To you, Pascal, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Buenos días a todos. Firstly, let me recognize also on behalf of our Secretary General, Ambassador Mr. Hussein, and also from my colleagues' part, Noor Adnan, that will also be part of the panel, that it is always a pleasure for us at the UPU to be part of your exchange of experience. Firstly, of course, we need to recognize and to accept that the COVID-19 pandemic will reshape our industries and the way we operate in the years to come. There will be a before COVID and a after COVID era. For the postal sector, beyond the negative impacts in short terms, we must expect structural changes that impact upon the established business model. I would like, of course, to share with all of you a number of lessons that can be drawn not only by the postal sector, but also by industries similar to or dependent on the post. My ideas center on the following keywords. First, acceleration. The pandemic has shaken up the behavior of economic players, forcing them to speed up digitalization, turning technology-resistant shoppers into e-shoppers, poorly connected businesses into e-businesses, and traditional government institutions into e-government players. This acceleration will certainly bring additional volumes to the e-commerce market, especially for the B2C segment. The second is a confirmation that the Post is now a benchmark logistician in the area of goods delivery. The goods-based postal model is replacing the document-based model. The pandemic has confirmed the role of the Post as a logistician handling the delivery of medicines and medical equipment, but also, and above all, product order on e-commerce platform. Let's not forget that 70% of e-commerce items are today delivered by the posts. Third, multilateralism. Thanks to its membership of the United Nations system, the UPU has been able to respond to and mitigate the effects of the pandemic through its partnership with organizations such as World Customs Organization, IATA, or ICAO. UPU members were thus able to access alternative means of transport, cargo or rail, for example. Blockage with the help of our partner organization. Multilateralism is still for us triumph on bilateralism or nationalism when it comes to trade. Then resilience. A post can then successfully withstand the effect of the pandemic is one with a diversified product portfolio, an efficient logistic chain, and a multimodal transport network. The rail network remains one of the alternative options for moving the huge volumes of mail between Asia, China specifically, and Europe. Since the middle of March, 21 mail-only block trains have transported nearly 8,000 tons of mail. The importance of the universal postal service. This crisis has highlighted the fact that the posts are an essential component of the global economy, providing a lifeline to all inhabitants of the world. Posts are critical not only for delivering traditional letter posts, parcels post, and express services, but also for delivering medicine, remittance, or government payments and are even called upon to facilitate voting in elections. The intergovernmental nature of the UPU means that it can raise governmental awareness as to the importance of the postal service in the social policies of countries looking to build better social, digital, economic and financial inclusion for their citizens. The globalization is also an important item. The pandemic calls for a new terminology. We saw that following the suspension of international commercial flight, the B2B, B2C segment showed resilience as domestic networks continue to be supplied by local logistical centers. We need to take a fresh look in the respective roles of global and domestic networks, since the latter can provide a layer of resilience when crises paralyze international supply network. Turning to our topic on the possible impact of mandatory electronic advance pre-declaration for cross-border e-commerce, I would like to remind you all that as from 1st of January 2021, designated operators will be required to capture and exchange electronic data for international postal items containing goods in order to comply with the specific import customs and security requirements in the United States as well as in Europe. We have no choice but to comply. Those requirements are not postal, they are security related and imposed by border authorities and navigation security. We can turn this burden into an advantage. EAD can be also used to facilitate and accelerate customs clearance and thus improve quality of service for e-commerce items. The UPU has taken all necessary steps to enable its members to comply. Mr. Noor, our EAD expert, will provide you with more information in a moment. As a close, I am glad to inform you that UPU and the World Free Zones Organization entered into formal relations in October 2019. Early this year, the World Free Zone Organization became a member of the UPU Consultative Committee, the body that brings on board the private sector and other key external stakeholders into the UPU platform to discuss and address global matters concerning the postal sector. Walter Trzek is the chairman of this body. The aim of this collaboration between UPU and the World Free Zones Organization is to promote the concept of parcelization of trade by leveraging on their current assets and capabilities and to build on the complementaries of the two sectors in processing on both cross-border B2C and B2B e-commerce. Due to the limitless possibility of the synergy between postal operator and free zones, the UPU, the Free Zones Organization and E-Commerce Europe are organizing pilots to practically test and validate the parcelization of trade concept. This would entail the integration of e-commerce, logistic and electronic data infrastructure of the free zones and postal supply chains for the seamless flows of B2B and B2C e-commerce items across border. As you go through the important items that you would have lined up before you today, mine is yet now to thank you and to thank the organizer of this timely forum and to recognize the effort of Mr. Walter Trzek, the chairman of our UPU Consultative Committee, who is involved in engaging the wider external sector and bringing the UPU to these events. I wish you and all a very fruitful deliberation and a very successful outcome. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you very much indeed, Pascal. We will move straight on, right into the subject. Thank you for your keynote speech. Thank you very much indeed. Now back to the panel, and I'm very grateful for the DDG of the UPU to have introduced already Mr. Adan, Mr. Noor Adan. I will ask the first question to you, but let me shortly introduce you to the wider audience. Noor is the supply chain management coordinator at the Universal Postal Union. In this role, he is responsible for, among other activities, designing and formulating strategies and policies in the area of postal supply chain, coordinating activities for the deployment of postal supply chain operations in alignment with international best practice in the logistics supply chain operations, and directing and coordinating the customs, transport, and security programs of the entire global postal supply chain. Noor, I hope you are online and can hear us.
Sure, Walter. Thank you. I can hear you.
Brilliant, brilliant. Let me ask the first question. Therefore, as you are the first panelist, to you directly. Now, e-commerce is booming globally. The legal and regulatory landscape is changing fast. Why is electronic advanced data a milestone for the postal operators worldwide? And the UPU facilitates, obviously, digitalization for all its members in a time of need. Was that just a lucky punch, or a result of hard and comprehensive work going on for some time already? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you again, Walter, and thanks to BNew for giving us this opportunity to participate in this panel discussion. As you have said in your question, the legislative landscape is really changing, and changing very fast at that. Many legislative requirements are sprouting all across the globe. For the UPU at the global level, in accordance with the articles of the Convention to the Regulations, which are the Articles 8002, Article 17107, 17216, designated operators shall from 1st of January 2021 capture and exchange EAD for international postal items containing goods in order to comply with the specific import customs and security-based requirement. This was also echoed out in the keynote speech of the UPU Deputy Director General. Well, at the regional level or national levels, to mention but a few, many countries or regions, such as USA, the European Union, the US's famous STOP Act, the European Union's UCC, and more commonly known as the ICS2 systems. Russia has legislative requirements through their federal act. China has, Russia, China, Brazil, Australia, and so on. So you can see very well that there are a lot of legislative requirements that are coming up with respect to EAD. EAD for the UPU community and the postal operators is not new. This goes back as far as 2005 when these discussions started. But more recently, according to the UPU's roadmap for EAD implementation, which was a result of the adoption of a POC resolution, CEP2 2015 of 2015, the UPU established an EAD steering committee to develop the roadmap and the associated milestones for EAD adoption and implementation. Although we are around 2.5 months shy of the upcoming deadlines in January 2021, the UPU knew this day was coming. Some of the milestones achieved on the UPU regulatory fronts include the adoption in the Doha Congress 2012 of Article 8 of the Convention on Postal Security and the subsequent adoption by the POC of the associated provisions on EAD contained in the articles I mentioned earlier. Then there was the development of the global postal model for the Union in response to the emerging EAD requirements, and also the adoption of the EAD roadmap. The guiding principles for the EAD roadmap is to ensure that its efforts help prepare the UPU member countries for EAD requirements that were upcoming in 2020 and 2021. And to achieve the said objectives, there were several areas of activities the EAD roadmap was addressing. The first one is the outreach activities to identify the exact nature of EAD requirements by engaging stakeholders to clarify these requirements. These stakeholders include World Customs Organization, International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, IATA, the European Commission, and so on. The second area that the roadmap was addressing is to build and test the global postal model to meet the EAD requirements, build the model and test the model flow by flow. Also, the messaging standards to cover the model's needs, the IT systems required, and the solutions that go with it, and the operational processes as well. Another area that the Global Postal EAD roadmap was addressing is the awareness raising and capacity building initiatives among the UPU member countries. This was a very critical area so that it meets the needs, EAD requirements, and assist the capacity building through technical assistance projects, training, IT equipment, support, IT solutions, and so on. Recently, in August, the UPU published a circular that kind of set off the alarm bell for the union member country, reminding them that the deadline and the countdown to the deadline has started. To support the union member countries to be ready for these deadlines, the UPU has several big ongoing technical support initiatives. One of them is the UPU's Quality of Service Common Fund, known as the EAD Data Capture, Transmission, and Compliance Project, where 113 designated operators of the union are benefiting from. Another major support is from the US Tide Fund that was received from USPS in the Extraordinary Congress in 2019, part of which was earmarked for the adoption and implementation of EAD. Therefore, currently, around 120 DOs are already sending the mandatory electronic advanced pre-declaration customs data for international postal items containing goods. One other benefits, other than the regulatory compliance, is also to look at the commercial benefits. So the commercial opportunities which come with the expanded capabilities of the designated operators as a result of the implementation and adoption of the global postal model, leveraging the provision of EAD to improve quality of service, enhance products and processes as facilitated by the provision of EAD. Based on all these ongoing efforts, we are confident the UPU community, to a large extent, will be ready for the upcoming deadline. So if I quickly look at the second part of the question, which is the UPU's digitalization effort, whether this was just a lucky punch or a hard and comprehensive work, for sure, it's not a lucky punch. This has been a hard and comprehensive work. As you know, the UPU's governance structure is run through cycles, and this work started way back in the cycle 1995 to 1999 when the foundational period started, and of course, that was built on until now. Therefore, if I look at the UPU's IT system and network, this is the single postal network composed of over 700,000 postal access points. It's complemented by interconnected IT networks used by approximately 5.3 million postal staff in the back and front office for processing of international mail. So you can understand the size of this network, and therefore this definitely could not be a lucky punch. Holistically, therefore, the UPU single postal network could be considered the largest network which can be leveraged in a whole to provide a seamless cross-border services. The UPU's digitalization efforts for e-commerce is basically addressing and providing standard technical interfaces for commercial partners. In the mobile area, it provides first and last mile apps to capture information in the field. In the domestic, it's extending that international supply chain solution with domestic capability. Therefore, again, I conclude by saying the UPU's digitalization journey is both long and a hard one, and the result of a very extensive and comprehensive work. Thank you so much, Walter.
Thank you, Nuer. Thank you. Wow, this was a lot of information, very good information, very hands-on, and I understood that the UPU is establishing itself as the network of the networks. Very good indeed. Thank you very much. Let us move on now to the World Free Zone Organization, and I have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Mohan Guruswamy, who is the Chief Knowledge Officer of the World Free Zone Organization. He has successfully delivered a number of projects, global initiatives, and capacity building exercises for free zones and governments in the UK, Switzerland, Netherlands, the United States of America, Canada, China, Kenya, Kyrgyzstan, Morocco, Colombia, India, and I mean, this is an ongoing list. He is full of knowledge. He will enlighten us. And let me just ask one question to Dr. Mohan. The World Free Zone Organization currently facilitates approximately a third of the global trade. Digital commerce has seen unprecedented volume increases during the pandemic. Will therefore B2B commerce evolve into a consumer to business to consumer model? Will the global free zone community evolve into becoming the infrastructure to facilitate access to globally distributed delivery of commercial items? Please, Dr. Mohan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Walter, and I thank the organizers. It's such a pleasure to be here today on this platform. I represent World Free Zones Organization, as you rightly said, and we are the voice of 3,000 plus free zones in the world, acting as the apex body and association registered in Geneva and operational from Dubai. Now, to begin with, the concept of supply chain management involving typically suppliers, manufacturers, dealers, retailers, customer, etc. It involves three types of flows between the chain members. One, the flow of goods, materials, and merchandise, which is logistics. The flow of funds, when the customer pays X amount of money, how much of it goes to the other members. The third, most importantly, is the flow of information. The flow of information is the base on which the flow of funds and the flow of materials are based. So your initiative of pre-declaration of accurate and adequate data is an excellent initiative, and World Free Zone Organization is very happy to collaborate with you in making this happen successfully. So first of all, very well done, and we are very happy to partner with you. The second point, to answer the specific question, World Free Zone Organization, 6 years old, present in 130 plus countries, our members. We have two major initiatives relevant to this context. One, we call it as Free Zone of the Future. 4 or 5 years ago, we started with a research called Next Practices Beyond Best Practices. And we said, can we predict, can we crystal gaze into the future and proactively plan and prepare ourselves? So we came up with a framework involving 3 pillars: sustainability, innovation, best in practice. Now, sustainability involves 3 elements: environment friendly, a good place to work, socially responsible free zone. Innovation has entrepreneurship, SME development, and innovative zones. And the best in class has a smart zone, safe zone, and capability development. Each one is a certification. We have what we call a progressive certification process. Now, what is significant in this context is our smart zone or tech-ready zone. When free zones get certified as tech-ready, it's going to help them, facilitate them to get into digitalization and implement e-commerce activities more easily. So this certification scheme is a major initiative which is contributing towards all the free zones in implementing digitalization and e-commerce. The second major initiative, which I would like to share with all our audience today, is a B2B marketplace platform that we are creating. We call it Omnia. This is under preparation. It is likely to get launched in the second quarter of 2021. Now, this platform will enable free zones to trade with other companies within their free zone, to trade with companies in other free zones within the region, and to trade with companies in free zones around the world. And it involves a lot of transparency. There is secure digital payments, and it also would involve a very sophisticated document tracking system. And the free zones will have full control over the audit workflow. So when companies within the free zones move all their businesses online, they will get an end-to-end solution. So World Free Zone definitely has some very major initiatives to support your objective, which is an excellent one, and ensure that we work together and make it successful. Thank you, Walter.
Thank you, Mohan. I know that you have to leave immediately, but I really like to point out that that young organization, World Free Zone organization, is in a status of learning and adopting and collaborating with the old lady, the Universal Postal Union, which finds new ways to adopt to the digital world. I very much appreciate your contribution. Thank you very much indeed. I know that you have to leave, but any questions coming in your direction, I will make sure that I pass it on to you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Let us move on now to a truly expert who is in the field of facilitation of cross-border e-commerce. It is Eddy Richevet. He has more than 25 years of experience in logistics, express freight, and international postal networks. He is an entrepreneur in e-commerce and e-logistics for merchants, marketplaces, and retailers. His own company, which he founded and his CEO of, Shop Run Back, is teamed up and obviously a facilitator for Shenzhen 4PX Express in Europe to tackle the growing cross-border e-commerce there. So he has the full depth information, knowledge of fulfillment services, in particular bridging between Asia and Europe. Eddy, let me give you a clear indication on a question to you. Efficient, speedy B2C fulfillment has become a determining aspect of competitive advantage in cross-border e-commerce. With more than a third of all cross-border items coming from Asia to Europe, will digitalization further raise efficiency? Will integration and interconnectivity driven by electronic advanced data and pre-declaration systems to customs or in security matters better serve the customer and its demand in the future? Eddy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Walter, and hi everyone. Happy to join and to share our experience in the field. As the panelists mentioned, e-commerce and cross-border e-commerce is growing so fast, and our organization is leading cross-border e-commerce for merchants from China to global and global to China and intra in the US, in Europe, and in Southeast Asia. What we want to share, and we are dealing with merchants, and so every day with shipping like more than 2 million parcels per day from China to global. Walter, what you mentioned, of course, the big challenges that we face, and and I'm happy to be on the panel with UPU, which is our strong partners as a key players. We are working with postal organization and as well with retail zone for the bonded warehouse. What we the way that our organization is looking at this business is of course speed is one, and we also need to secure cost. So it's always a good balance between speed and cost for cross-border. And the key is to build, and what we are looking at is building two networks. So the global parcel network. So it's like to be able to dispatch and to deliver from China to global within 72 hours in average. And at the same time, we are building the global fulfillment network. And so it's like fulfillment base in country that will support the promise to end consumer. In term, and to give you an example of the type of organization that we are building, capacity building, is that we are using. We can use what we build is like a global network, with multi partners and multi countries. We can use first mile option with local players. We can use line haul from post, last mile from post, or depending of the case of the situation, type of product or speed or different type of market. We are mainly focused on the B2C market, but we can integrate different type of players. The game and the challenge for us is to be able to build this multi players network, and the key, we are talking about IT platform. This is what we build. We build this kind of IT platform that will be able to connect all players. The customs, and this is the topic from today. Of course, the electronic declaration will change many things in the way that we are doing the business, and this is the normal things. We also specialize in returns, and this kind of information, for example, to get information about what is inside is also very good in terms of delivery and after sales. Of course, non-delivered parcel, or if in any case end consumer want to return, for example, and this is our main one of our main activities. This kind of information, what is inside the platform, is very strategic and very important for us. So we follow. We need to follow very carefully and the trend, and what will be, and what will be the next step in building this. Changing the rules and apply the rules from January 2021, and so globally, and to finish, I would say that the fulfillment network, and we are talking about different type of organizations. So from China to global, and all this organization will be based as well on fulfillment center to let local merchant, for example, to be able to keep the stock as close as possible from end consumer, and then to be able to deliver by post, for example, last mile by post. So this is the type of organization and network that we are building.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you. Very insightful. Very important to have the perspective of the global environment, directly linked, of course, to the postal network. Postal network. Let me move on to a very distinguished colleague of mine, right to the designated operator of Spain, to Correos. It is my pleasure to introduce Beatriz Galvan Santiago. She is head of European Affairs and Regulation at Correos, and has a broad experience about the European Union policies and regulations applied to the postal sector. With more than 15 years in post, she has a deep knowledge about delivery and its challenges. Her experience involves customs procedures, VAT regulation, WTO discussions about postal matters, and more recently, e-commerce standards in the postal pipeline. Dia, Dear Beatrice, Piraeus has been one of the leading operators adopting electronic advanced data for the digitalization of cross-border customs and security processes of parcels. So is Piraeus ready to facilitate access for senders by January 2021? And will Piraeus adopt a forward-looking approach anticipating the digitalization of the import control system and the end of the VAT threshold into the European Union until mid-2021 as well? Or in other words, are you ready to provide all the necessary services to all our listeners currently to this panel? Thank you. Thank you, Beatrice. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you for inviting Correos to this panel in this very interesting new fair at Barcelona. First of all, I would like to answer short your question. Yes, Correos is ready and is one of the first operators that was ready for electronic advanced data. And then I would like to underline the benefits, although my colleagues of panel have already talked about them. I would like to underline the benefits to all stakeholders that electronic advanced data brings. First, the authorities, border control authorities and customs, that will have better information to perform risk assessment of goods coming into the country. Besides, accurate and detailed information on the items that are being imported make import duties and tax calculation easier and faster. Second, to consumers, which will see a significant improvement both in terms of processing time and transparency on customs declaration. Third, to, I guess, most of the listeners of this panel and this forum, the e-retailers, e-sellers that will be having happy consumers wanting to buy more from them because they have had an excellent purchasing experience where they knew exactly how much taxes they will have to pay to the authorities and how long would the process take. And fourth and last, the list of benefits for postal operators is extensive and for other carriers as well. The first, compliance with international aviation security requirements, seamless customs clearance at destination, more efficient operation at the exchange office, more accurate information to perform successful delivery in the first attempt, saving costs and contributing to a positive customer experience, better quality of service in summary, satisfaction of exporters and e-sellers, and hopefully a growing demand for postal services. So that's a happy end. But of course, there are also some areas of concern that will need further work and analysis. In a process dominated by data, and where part of this data are personal data, there are concerns about privacy and compliance with the data protection regulatory frameworks of each of the countries of origin. Next, data collected, managed, filtered, transmitted, and analyzed electronically needs a powerful technology tools with enough capability not to collapse when the amount of information grows. And we have a good deal of information there. It's a big challenge for developing countries and in a context of crisis after the coronavirus pandemic, especially, it will be a strong challenge that the UPU has said is already helping to support. This technology has been developed, as already mentioned by Mr. Noor, but it will take some time until these systems are running in an efficient and outperforming way. Besides, operators worldwide will have to invest in technological capability to capture, transmit, and receive this kind of data. And new technological interfaces between postal operators and customs will have to develop. And all these projects will need extensive funding and strong support from the authorities and will take quite some time. When data are not digitalized in the first step of the value chain, that is when the sender brings the item to the postal operator, there is an extra process of data capture that must be put in place. This process, be it manually or automated, will have an extra cost that will have to be collected. Of course, the global postal solution provided by the UPU will help and support here. And a less concern will be what kind of effect this new procedure will have on postal services demand. It might be a positive one if the customers perceive all these changes as an improvement of reliability and transparency and enhanced quality of service, but it could have a different outcome. And coming closer to your question, which is related to the electronic advanced data model that Korea's put into place for the export flow, for the outbound flow. It was as early as 2010 that Korea's, as one of the first postal operators that started designing a process to digitize all data and information required to perform customs declarations. Many senders already input information in digital systems via specialized software, websites for small and medium enterprises, transmission of files, etc. But customers that use post office service, customers who bring postal items to the counter and fill in a paper form were a big challenge. Since then, Korea, aware of the importance of this process, has been an active member to the UPU projects linked to customs security. In this sense, we have provided both to the UPU and the World Customs Organization support in the dissemination of best ways to implement electronic advanced data. UPU Global Postal Model for Electronic Advanced Data is the map of information that guides all parts throughout this process. This map shows the capture and transmission of electronic customs declaration data that facilitates the exchange of customs and security information between postal operators, customs administrations, and carriers within the postal supply chain. UPU is currently working on standards to define all flows of information in the best and more efficient way, supporting in this way the work done by the postal operators. But where do these data come from? Well, the answer is easy. It comes from you, from senders and from receivers of mail, from people that are purchasing items in another country and want them delivered to their home. The challenge is double. First, we must collect this information in a way that facilitates digital transmission to destination country. And second, it is key to have a set of data with enough quality that warranties a successful process, so that security checks, risk assessments, customs declaration, and taxes calculation can be performed. So there is a key flow, which is flow 0 in this whole map, that accounts for the collection of information that will travel then through this map. This is the information needed to perform customs declaration when the item reaches destination country. In the postal world, it is contained in a postal customs declaration form and includes sender's name, sender's address, addressee's name, addressee's address, detailed description of the contents, very important, gross weight, and number of packages, which is 1 by default. Our Korea's customs manager, Mrs. Cristina Cuerda, is author of a World Customs Organization and UPU guidelines on data capture and compliance with the post-customs declaration Flow 0. This document... Yes?
Could you come to the end? I mean, I need to close the session. Please come to the end. Thank you.
Okay. So this document help and support postal operators to develop and implement this process. And in short, summarizing the answer, Korea is ready to facilitate export to customers fully compliant with regulatory changes that enter into force in January 2021. And as for the second question, it is about the imports. And the information on the imports depend on the origin country and not so much on Korea's. Therefore, it depends on the global system that is being put into place by the UPU. and on the clarity of the information on and interpretation guidelines on the regulation approved by the European Union.
Thank you very much indeed. I understood we are at the end of the beginning, but the road is still quite extensive, and it's all about data quality and data security. Thank you very much indeed. I checked if we have any questions. The moderation told me in the background there are no questions. That's the reason why I extended the speeches a little bit. So thank you very much for listening to our panel, and I'm quite sure there would have been a huge applause to all of you. So much information, so much good guidance. Thank you very much indeed. And with that, I would like to hand back to our presenter. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to listen about e-commerce and its immediate future, getting an almost real-time update on what's going to happen. It's really necessary and interesting. Thank you all for joining us, and especially you, Walter. See you. Bien, hemos tenido una conexión digital mundial, porque se ha conectado gente de España, obviamente, pero también Suiza, Rusia, Croacia, Líbano, República Checa, Brasil, Turquía. Nosotros lo que haremos ahora es hacer una breve pausa para volver y hablaremos sobre el estrés del e-commerce, porque sí, el e-commerce también se puede estresar en un momento determinado, como pasó durante la pandemia. Hablaremos sobre cómo se organizaron los supermercados e incluso quizás sabremos por qué se agotó lo primero, el papel de váter. Nosotros volveremos desde el plató de e-commerce con Servihabitat, la col·laboració de l'Ajuntament de Barcelona i todo organizado por el Consorci de la Zona Franca de Barcelona. Hasta ahora.